one day the men got the mail, and it was an invitation from the Zen Center in San Francisco that Suzuki Roshi, that's not the one who wrote the book who's famous, it's the Suzuki Roshi who was the head of the Zen Center in San Francisco, different Roshi. He was going to transmit his Dharma to an American, Dick Baker. And so, we got a lot of those invitations, but Shifu would never take us anywhere. But this one, he said he wanted to take us. So he set it up that we were going to go. I can make a long story short, or I can make a long story long. The long story is we looked terrible. We didn't have clothes because the clothes came from Hong Kong and they were for little Chinese people, and we were big Americans. And so they didn't fit. They were either too short or not wide enough around or whatever. And they didn't match color. And we didn't have shoes because they didn't make them in the United States. You had to get Sangha Arhat shoes from Asia. And we didn't have money. So we were a motley crew. We really were. And he said, you're going to go with me. So about maybe 8 or 9 of us disciples, the first 5 and the next 4 at least, went. And because Shifu was Shifu, he got a place of honor. So there we are in our mismatched everythings, and he marches us in. They march us in almost front and center. And then Baker, Dick Baker, who's going to become Baker Roshi, comes in. And we were quite amused because he looked just about like us. His was Japanese tradition. He was a great big tall guy, probably 6 foot. So his clothes didn't fit either. He had scrawny legs, and the robe was up about his knees. So anyway, now when I go to that place and I see the room, it's very small, but to me at that time it was a vast room. And so it turns out Suzuki Roshi had cancer of the throat and couldn't speak by that time. And so I remember, now I know because I've been there and I know what I saw then, but what I saw was Dick Baker, who was going to become the Roshi, walked over and up some stairs, and Suzuki Roshi was on the other side of the door, up the stairs. And that's where the transmission took place. They said, well, Suzuki Roshi couldn't talk, but something happened between them. And then he came down, and the ritual was, because Japanese are very into ritualistic, so the ritual was going to be, he told about his transmission, he gave a little speech, and then they got to ask questions. So he came down and said, it was wonderful. I got my teacher's transmission. He said, there is no high and there is no low. This comes from the Vajra Sutra. Everything is equal and everything is empty. So he went circle, and then he said, I got it. I know what he meant. And so then there were questions. And we're sitting in the front, so we can't see in the back, but it certainly felt to me like it was probably all rehearsed. This person asks a question and Baker Roshi answers and so forth. So it was kind of, 2 or 3 kind of innocuous questions, not much meaning to them. But then somebody stood up in the back, a man, and he said, when I got ready this morning and I clipped my toenails, I didn't know where to put the clippings. And so he asked Baker Roshi, where should I put the clippings? And Baker Roshi sort of did smoke and mirrors because he didn't have an answer. And finally could only, and So he said to the guy, "Oh, I know, you work in the kitchen." And the guy said, "My working in the kitchen has nothing to do with my question. Where should I have put my toenail clippings?" And finally Baker Roshi just said, "I had the same problem." So it's like shaggy dog, no good answer, right? Okay, so then we finished. We had tea with Baker Roshi, and then we all went home. And of course, when we get home to Gold Mountain, we're going to debrief. So we had a 5-minute restroom break, and then we had to come back and debrief. Now, the first one to talk is恆. He's the Jewish guy that left home with us, smart guy. So he says, "Well, come on. I mean, that question from the cook, Baker Roshi just couldn't answer it." And so, of course, Shifu said, "Oh, how would you answer it?" So恆had nothing to say. Shifu says, "Really easy." Have you heard this story before? Yeah, you're the only one. They've all heard it. He says, "Really easy." I would have told him, you just take the clippers and you clip a little circle in the top of your head and lift out your skull, and then you go and you clip out a little bit of your brains, and then you put the toenail clippings there. You're laughing. So what was that? That came from the Sixth Patriarch Sutra. Sixth Patriarch said, in the end, when he taught us how to handle the Dharma, he said, if somebody says day, you answer with night. If somebody says good, you answer with bad. So, the most useless thing probably is our toenail clippings. And the most valuable thing to us is our brain. So the master just did that. That was an example of the 36 pairs of opposites that Sixth Patriarch taught. But what was the principle? The principle, it wasn't just I say this and then you say the opposite. It wasn't Chan banter. What the principle was that if you say something extreme and he follows with something at the other extreme, there's a chance that you come back to the middle in that very moment of thought. When you're over here with the toenail clippings and he says the brain, whoosh, you come back. So that's an example of the middle way, and that's what the Sixth Patriarch was teaching his disciples to use, was that method, so that if people were ready, they could get enlightened when they heard those two opposites and brought them back. And you could have gotten enlightened. I mean, it's not true for telling it, but you could have. Did you? No. Oh, okay.
It's the 36 pairs.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that story. And it was it's another example of his humor, which always has a moral to it. You always learn something. So the lesson from this is,
我现在给你们讲这个经，只是好像开一个荒地似的，种下这个种子，将来要你们自己去开辟广大的这个佛教的这种田，下这个菩提种子。你们以后每一个人都要有一种自立的思想，不要生出一种依赖性，不要好像恶男似的，释迦牟尼佛要入涅盘了，他就哭起来，就因为依赖性太重了。那么你们都是人才，都是法门的龙象，我为什么欢喜你们这样学我虽然没有什么本领，我教出一些个徒弟要有比我有本领，要青出于蓝。青出于蓝，那个青色是从蓝色染出来的。又有一句话说，有状元徒弟，没有状元师傅。你看种状元那个学生他的老师并不是状元，他的老师也是一个普通的 秀才呀、举人之类的，不是状元，那么他可以教出状元的徒弟来。你们现在呀学这个佛法啊，你们这个师傅是个业障鬼。为什么讲这个呢？这也是讲众生的根性的啊。我是业障鬼的根性，你们就是菩提萨法的根性，咱们要经过一番锻炼，然后会成就的。但是不要生一种依赖性，我在这儿也就像我没有在这儿一样，我没有在这儿也就像我在这儿一样。如果你们现在不练习自己自强不息呀，不知道哪一天或者有什么阿斯顿或者地震把我震到海里去，你们那时候怎么办呢？你也早就不依赖师父，那么到有什么问题的时候都不要紧。你们各位呀，要时刻要努力，要为佛法着想，不要为自己做着想。那么这是很浅显的一个道理，也很要紧的。